Hey guys, welcome to a critique episode. I'm going to be doing foot bones. Not as many submissions as with the leg bones. I wonder if it had anything to do with how difficult the foot bones are to draw. So, okay, the assignment for the feet that I gave you guys was, I gave you guys a bunch of poses of skelly feet. They weren't just neutral, different angles, but they were feet with actual poses. And you were supposed to draw those as simple forms. Because, really that's what is going to help you draw this stuff in real life. Is if you understand the simple forms, how often are you going to actually draw bones, right? Unless maybe if you're an illustrator and you're drawing a skeleton or like some zombie with the flesh ripped off, you're usually going to be drawing the surface forms. And the simple form, the big shape of the foot is much more important than every individual bone. There's so many little bones in the ankle that trying to memorize those is kind of pointless. They're all covered up. It's good to know that stuff, but not first. You don't learn that stuff first and then try to learn the simple forms. It's the opposite. You learn the simple forms and then you learn how to put the stuff inside of it. You start adding detail to your knowledge. So, okay, we're gonna start with Mario. Here are his submissions. So one of the main things I want to talk to you guys about is hierarchy of forms. I've talked about this in the hand lesson when I showed you, starting with the basic blocks and then adding some of the anatomical information like the knuckles and the secondary forms, right? The slightly smaller forms than the big block. And then adding the tertiary forms on top of that, which are like wrinkles and veins on top of the knuckles, like things like that, which are like the really small details. And I don't mean details as in like highlights and halftones. Those are things that define the forms. I'm talking about hierarchy of actual forms, like big, simple forms, then medium forms, and then very small forms. The primary simple forms are the most important, and then the tertiary small forms are the least important in getting your big picture. The tertiary forms look great if they're on top of a well-built, primary form drawing. But on their own, they don't look good. Let's take a look at these bottom two that you have on the right. This is an ortho view, meaning you're looking directly onto like the bottom or the top. So simplifying these into forms doesn't make too much sense because it's just like you're looking directly at a plane. You can't have those three-dimensional forms indicated very well. So another concept applies here, which is enveloping. Enveloping is basically you have a foot like this, and it's made up of all these little pieces. But you don't start with all the little pieces because you can get tunnel visioned. By the time you get down to finishing all the pieces, you step back and realize, oh wow, I've been skewing this whole thing, kind of curving it, or I was growing everything as I was going down, or shrinking everything. You have to look at the big picture first and then break it up into smaller parts. Enveloping is just a two-dimensional version of like the hierarchy of forms concept. So if you look at the foot you drew on the right, the envelope for your foot that you drew would be something like this. And if I was to start with an envelope like that for a foot, to me that doesn't look like a foot. It looks very wide. So I would have immediately corrected myself. Hopefully you see that that's a very wide foot as well. Starting with this envelope, I think would help you keep the proportions more accurate. And same thing on this foot on the left. If you started with the envelope on this, you would have realized it's really tall, really skinny. But not just that. Because, well, okay, let's say you got an envelope and now you start breaking it up into smaller pieces. You don't then go in and start adding every little small piece again. You break it up into the next largest form. So for example, you see how okay, let's get this big envelope. Then what are the next smaller pieces? It's not each individual bone in here, like you got the metatarsals in this area. The next smaller pieces would be all the separations between the groups. So this separation in here, you got the tarsals. Then you got this separation between the metatarsals and phalanges. And then so you look at these three groups and you say, okay, what is the ratio between the lengths of each of these groups? Then once you got those ratios correct, then you start breaking up each group into each individual bone. And by doing that, starting with the biggest form, breaking it up into the next biggest form, and then breaking it up into the next biggest forms, going smaller and smaller each time, you keep your proportions more accurate that way. Because it's a lot easier to compare these three areas than it is to start thinking about every little bone, because there's like, I don't know, what is it, like 20-something bones in there, or 30? You know, if you're trying to juggle all that in your mind and comparing all that, it's a lot harder than 3 shapes. And I see that you, in this drawing, you made a mistake in the overall envelope. You made it tall and skinny. And you made a mistake in the relationships between the 3 groups, the tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. Let me show you. So this is the premium section. You guys get these 3D models. So this is the 3D model of the foot bones. So I can just get this bottom view, zoom out a little bit, and let me bring this into Photoshop so I could compare. Okay, so there's the foot, same side as yours. When I compare the length, let's say, from the heel to the average area of the division between the tarsals and metatarsals, right around here. And then the same thing in here, average division between metatarsals and phalanges. If I look at these 2 lengths that you defined, they're about equal. But now let's look at a real foot. The average is around here. Look at how much longer the tarsals are than the metatarsals. You see that? So the foot is built in the opposite way that the hand is. With the hand, we have the carpals in the wrist, the smallest section. Then we have the metacarpals in here. The next is a little bit bigger. And then all the phalanges together are a little bit bigger than that. In the foot, it's the opposite. Now, if I was drawing this, I wouldn't stop there. I would keep dividing it into the smaller forms. And I would, like, let's say I'm looking at the tarsals, this whole area in here. Then I would divide this length into this length in here, this one and this one, because look how much longer this heel bone is than the rest of the tarsals. You have it, again, about in the middle, so that's off. So you start big and you slowly start to break it up. Don't draw each one individually as kind of just like a list of things. You break them up. Okay, that will help you. That'll definitely help you keep things in proportion. Okay, so thanks, Mario. Let's move on to Bronwyn. And here, this is just another example of the same issue where Bronwyn, you're focusing a lot on the individual bones without constructing the primary forms first. And here, I want to actually do one for you guys, show you what I mean. How do you take the simple form and then break it down into secondary and tertiary forms? Because I don't want to discourage you guys from drawing these individual bones. It's fine. It's good to study each bone, you know. I want to show you guys how to do this, so let me do a little demonstration. I'm going to take this one here, and here's the reference on the left, just so we can compare your proportions and the forms you're showing. So the first thing I would start with, I always start with this, the gesture. Gesture is the motion of the forms, but I also want to make sure that the gesture has the right proportions in it. So the gesture will guide, it's kind of like an envelope. It's an envelope in which I don't just focus on the shape, but I also focus on the motion of the shape. I want to make sure that the shape I draw is dynamic. So it's not just the proportions of the shape, it's the design of the shape. So when I look at the reference, when I look at this foot pose, the gesture that I'm seeing, very, very nice curve through the ankle. When you look at the individual bones, you don't see that. But when you step back, you look at the whole thing, you look at the flow between them all, you see there's a really nice curve there. And then there's a very sharp corner between the ball of the toe and the way it points there. There's a lot of pressure there. The weight is going onto that toe. So I want to show tension with that corner. And then on the other side, there's going to be just a simple S curve, and then the heel kind of pops out from there. So the gesture, or the envelope, the rhythmical envelope that I'll draw, will be those lines with the outer form, kind of grouping all my smaller forms together. I'm not just looking at the size, I'm also looking at how in the ankle it's a little bit thinner, right? And then as we get to the balls of the foot, you know, those joints between the metatarsals and the phalanges, it gets quite a bit wider through here than it is through here. So I want to make sure I capture that relationship as well. And angles are important too. You see that angle I drew on the reference between the joints? In my drawing, if I just draw a horizontal, that's incorrect. It's the wrong shape. So I'm going to try to get the most accurate angle on there. And then the big toe comes out this way. And same concept, you know, envelope for the entire group of forms. Let me clean this up a little bit. I usually stay a little cleaner with when I'm doing actual drawings. I don't know why my critiques tend to get messy. Probably because I'm talking. Actually, I want to curve that even more. I'm going to push that gesture. I feel like it's a little stiff. So see, this is the area where you make these adjustments. See how much quicker it is for me to change that contour when it's just one line? If I had drawn the heel already with you know, the fibula right on there, it would take so much longer for me to redraw that. But now I'm focusing on getting the correct shape of this envelope, of this gesture, and it's really easy for me to make adjustments. If I see proportional errors or it's stiff, whatever it is, I can make very quick adjustments to it. So I feel like that's pretty decent. Maybe curve, push that pinky bending in a little more. And actually, more like that. There you go. All right, I feel like that's a pretty accurate envelope. And now I want to put the heel in there somewhere. Before I start drawing in like all the little pieces inside of this form, I want to make sure that the big chunk of the heel is included in kind of another shape. And I want to make sure that the proportions are correct. So what do I do? I'm going to look at the reference, take a measurement of the width, and then stack it up and see where does the heel end? Where's the top of the heel? You know, is it here? Or is it here? Is it here? It would be very nice to know and be confident with my measurement. So I'm measuring with my stylus here, getting that width, and I'm starting from where the ball touches the ball of the foot touches the ground, and it looks like it's exactly two widths wide from where the ball of the foot touches the ground, and that's right about there. Here's another very nice tool to help you draw proportions correctly. It's called a plumb line. This is a very basic thing. If you guys have taken the anatomy course, you should kind of know this already. Plumb line is a vertical line, it could be a horizontal line as well, where you take one point on something and you draw a vertical line and you see where it intersects with other things. And that will help you place things correctly horizontally. If I draw a straight line up from where the ball of foot touches the ground, it kind of goes right through kind of the middle of this heel. And I think, okay, well what about if I take a point from here and draw it down? Oh, look at that, it goes right to the tip of the toe. Nice alignments. If I'm drawing this foot, I want to make sure that those align correctly. Unless I pushed the gesture intentionally, then you gotta start thinking of things like if you're bending something farther than the reference, you gotta make sure you understand that the plumb lines won't align anymore, as you know, because you're pushing things away. But I'm just pushing more of the curvature of the foot. I don't think I'm pushing, the adjustment I made is gonna be offsetting the plumb lines. So here's that plumb line, and then I'd say the tip of the big toe should be like right there. All right, and there's the heel. And that gives me a rough placement of where I should put my little heel envelope. And actually, look at the shape I'm putting for the heel. It's the gesture of the heel. I'm not actually looking at the actual contour of the heel, which would be more like this. And actually, see that's what you have on yours. I'm looking at the gesture. How does the heel connect to the rest of the foot? It's kind of an S-curve. If you look at this whole group of bones, there's a little bit of twisting going on. There's an S-curve like that. So there's two primary rhythm lines I see in this whole pose. There's an S-curve from the toes up the body of the foot into the heel. So that's the rhythm from toes to heel. And then if I connect the toes to the leg, it's this C-curve that I started with. Two primary rhythms. And they're both there, so I want to make sure I'm kind of capturing both of them. And drawing through forms. I don't see the other side of this heel, but I know it's there. It's covered up by the leg bones. Drawing through the forms will help you keep things connected, and that also helps you keep things in proportion. I see that all the time where, like, let's say you have an arm. I'm going to just draw like a stick figure arm here just to show you the concept. And then there's something here kind of covering the arm, and then the arm comes out from the other side, and somebody, the person will draw the arm like, okay, I'm going to continue it, connect it to the shoulder and the pec. And then it's like, well, look at, they're not connecting underneath that form. They're not actually merging. Happens all the time. I see it everywhere. This is a very obvious example that I'm showing you, but this kind of thing happens all the time in much more subtle places for people. They don't even realize that they're doing this. So drawing through the form to make sure that this heel connects and still follows that S-curve rhythm all the way through. Now I got two very nice envelopes. Just to simplify it for you guys even more, I got this S-curve envelope, kind of like this, and then I got this C-curve envelope. These are also gesture lines. Together, these contain my small, the secondary forms, all the little, the groups of bones, and then that will contain the tertiary forms. So let's move on. Let's speed this up a little bit. Got my gesture. Let's drop the opacity on that. I want to kind of have it in the background a little bit. Change my color to black. Okay, now I want to draw my primary forms, the biggest form possible. So I kind of mentioned earlier that the whole foot is twisting a little bit. And so I'm seeing the side plane of the heel here, and I'm seeing the side plane of the big toe here on this side. And so it's like, I'm seeing the side planes on both sides. Well, no, it's twisting. On the top, it's kind of facing this way, and the bottom, it's going the other way. So that's why there's an S-curve rhythm through there. S-curve usually means there's a twist. So the way I'm going to draw this form, this primary form, is I'm going to indicate a side plane in here, thinking of a big block, a twisting big block, but it's still a very simple form. And then on the other side of that heel, I'm not going to show a side plane because we're not looking at it on that side, but I am going to slowly twist it here and then reveal the side plane here. You guys kind of start seeing how useful this is, how much easier it's going to be to imagine each bone inside of this block now that I kind of have this three-dimensional twisting thing kind of guiding me as I draw each part. Imagine how much harder it is to apply this twisting concept to each individual bone as you draw them. Man, I don't know if I would be able to do that. Okay, then this attaches to the group of toes. And I'm just going to group them all together. I usually separate the big toe from the other ones, but I'm just going to group this whole thing together. I have this same drawing as an assignment example in the premium section, so I'm not going to redo the whole thing exactly the same way. Just going to show you guys what I mean by primary forms to secondary to tertiary. Okay, so we're seeing a little bit of the front planes of those toes, so that's what that is. Okay, so that's my foot. Then you do have the leg bones and the ankle attached in there. I'm just going to ignore that for now. I just want to show you guys this concept of primary to secondary. So the secondary forms would then be like the individual bones that, the simple forms of the bones. Not all the little bumps of each bone, but the simple forms of each bone. So let's just look at this guy here. So we got like a cylindrical cap tapers a little bit, and then it attaches to a ball. It's the ball that the phalanges will rotate around. It's the articulating surface. So that would be the secondary form. And then the tertiary forms would be all the little bumps on top of it. And typically what you're going to be doing is you're actually going to be drawing a real foot, not just the bones of the foot. And so the secondary forms would be like the veins and the tendons running across there. Sometimes the wrinkles. There's there's going to be a pinch in here of the skin. Those will be the tertiary forms. All those little things, the little bumps. But the big form of that metatarsal will show through. This ridge right here, this top ridge in here, that's subcutaneous. And so I do kind of want to know what that primary form going across there is. I hope that makes sense, guys. It's going to help you keep all your things in proportion and also feeling more three-dimensional and more dynamic if you follow this process. So that is it. Thank you guys for submitting your feet assignments. And as always, there's a lot more available in the premium anatomy course. I critique a lot more people with a lot more specific anatomy advice. So if you want more of that information, go to proko.com/anatomy. See you guys in the butt. In the butt lesson. The next lesson is the butt lesson.